one of the physiotherapists was talking to me while I'm on the treadmill. And she said, I can't imagine how much pain you must have been in to actually volunteer to have your leg removed rather than see what they could do to save it. I want the leg off. I want a normal life. There was people that I sort of was surprised when they stepped up. You know, they turn up at the hospital at odd hours and go, right, I've just finished work. I've bought you 20 cigs. I've got you a bottle of Coke, I've got you a bottle. And you think, I'd never expected it from you. But there were people that you'd sort of think, we've been friends for years, I've bailed you out of how much trouble. And suddenly they'd change the number, or they wouldn't reply to WhatsApps. They wouldn't pick up the phone. And you think, yeah, I know where your loyalties lie.
Every L podcast. Every L podcast.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Matt Brown, and you're listening to the
Every L podcast.
Each episode, we'll have a different guest come on and talk about when life hands you an L, is it really a loss, or is it something else?
Because not every L's a loss.
So sit back, relax, or do whatever you guys do to get comfortable as we get into this. Let's go. Welcome everyone to another episode of Every L podcast, where we have different guests come on and talk about their personal circumstances. Today I am absolutely gassed to have someone who I've had the pleasure of meeting, and when I first met him, well, to be fair, I saw his CV before I met him and just seemed like a typical guy, if I'm honest. What can you really learn from a CV? And then I eventually met him, and what stood out to me more than anything else was just his personality. He had a very, very warm, very vibrant personality where you think, rah, I get on with this guy. Quirky sense of humour, but definitely I like him. I like how he conducts himself. And I guess when in the setting that we was in, where it was like a group setting, you know, there's some people that are slightly challenging, but he was also challenging, but more so because I'm like, I can't laugh at your jokes because other people are around. I've got to stay, you know, in the zone. But he's an absolute joy, and thankfully we've been able to forge a relationship since then. And just seeing how he conducts himself and knowing the limited bits I know about him, I have so much appreciation for what he's done and what he still goes through, because there's a lot of things, and you'll learn this soon once you start talking to him. He's gone through so much, and there's certain things that go off, and it may trigger him, it may make him second guess himself, long and short of it, he perceives things in a different way to how we all do because of his experience. To have someone who's still putting themselves out there, still being a valuable member of society, being part of ex-forces. He was doing things for us when we didn't even know he was doing things for us. And now, as a civilian, he's able to contribute to society in a way that maybe he never thought he could. But he's doing a tremendous job. And I'm so honoured and so appreciative to have him, not only as a guest on this episode, but to actually say I can call him my friend. So I'd like to welcome Nick. How are you doing, sir?
I'm not too bad, sir, yourself, and thank you for the great introduction. The check's in the post. I'm glad you used the script I sent you.
That's all right. A bit of ad-lib there, you know. So hopefully another zero's on the end of that check.
Definitely. You've earned it.
So feel free to tell people a little bit about yourself outside of what I've just explained before we sort of discuss about your first L.
Hi, my name's Nick, and I'm a Libra. I take very little seriously. I'm a former serviceman, and I then did many, many years as a close protection operative and an attitude adjustment engineer, or bouncer, as the people like to call them. In fact, I get into trouble for calling them attitude adjustment engineers. But I actually had to have that taken off my CV because it was on there, and I got told, no, it's too aggressive.
To be fair, I've seen it where the security guard jobs now are called loss prevention officers, which it's a bit of a stretch if I'm honest.
Yeah. I actually had an armed force service as population reduction specialist. I was told I couldn't do that either.
I can see why. Oh gosh. Oh well, there's a way of presenting information, and then there's what you do.
Yeah, I'm learning that.
I like to be mindful. There's going to be some people that may be hearing this opposed to watching it, so they may not know what we look like. So I like to introduce myself and say I'm a tall black guy. I now wear glasses because my eyesight's got to that point. Nick and I were talking offline, saying how I've got to the point now where I have to hold items at a certain length of my face and literally hold myself back and avoid taking a picture or said whatever it is I'm reading and then zooming in on the phone. I can't be doing that. So I'm just rocking some glasses now, feeding myself a little bit, if I'm honest with yourself. Yeah, that's pretty much sums
Between
me up.
Idris Elba and Barry White. I'm sorry, Matt, but you are.
I'm more Barry White because of the weight. How would you describe yourself to someone who may not be able to visually see yourself?
I'm bald, white, good looking, quite heavy. I'm about 18 stone, or about 16 stone if I take my leg off. I am a below knee amputee.
Okay, so now that you know that, folks, let's lead into your L that you want to discuss. And it is the fact that it's about you becoming an amputee. So
Yep.
with that, you're the one that wanted to talk about this, and we've spoken a little bit about it. I don't think I've gone into too much detail because it's a personal matter. But if you go back to setting the scene to lead us up to when it actually happened, and then we'll just have a conversation about it afterwards about how it felt after said incident.
It was, as I said, I did close protection, did door work. So after I come out of the army, I did physical work. As I said, I'm a big lad, and I was earning money that. And I thought, that'll do me until I retire. And then I woke up one morning, went to go to the toilet, and my left leg wouldn't support me. And it was, oh, that's not a good day out, especially since I'm busting to go to the toilet. Managed to go and went to the walk-in centre, and they x-rayed it, and they immediately gave me crutches and sent me an appointment to the Royal National Orthopaedic. It seemed that I'd had an injury at some point, and I'd developed ankylosing spondylosis, which fused all the bones in my leg together. Just massive calcium builds up and had fused all the bones. It usually occurs in the spine, but I'd got it for some reason in my leg. And for the best part of 2 years, I was running to the Royal National Orthopaedic, local hospitals, pain management. And finally, they gave me the choice of second opinion to a doctor that was dealing with the lads coming back from Afghan and Iraq. For his view, with me being ex-military, saw him, and brilliant doctor, looked at the x-rays, took me for an MRI, had a look, and he went, "You're ex-forces, aren't you?" I says, "Yes." He says, "Right, I'll be blunt. It'll get worse so we can chop your leg off." He says, "What do you want to do?" I says, "Will it ever get better?" He went, "No." I says, "Sod it, I get free parking if you chop it off. Let's do it." And they removed the leg, 2nd of May, 2018. So I'm only a recent amputee. So, 8 years this year. 2 years before Darth Vader Day.
Damn.
That's what I said. But the morphine's good. Free parking, and I don't have to go upstairs to a toilet in a Wetherspoons.
Valid. See, that was a very brief overview of that, but I'd imagine the lead up to that must have been something quite tremendous, especially when, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'd like to hear your side of it, but if you're just getting up to go to the loo, BAU, business as usual, and then you just can't get your left leg to work as you would expect it to, because we take these things for granted, was there any sign to think, my leg's been feeling a bit weak recently, this just makes sense? Or was it just completely out of the blue, what's going on here?
It had played up for years, but I'd still got shrapnel in my leg, so you just put it down to, the shrapnel's giving me a bit of grief. I'd never considered that I'd developed ankylosing spondylosis, which was making things worse. I mean, but I was using a walking stick and I looked like Herman Munster's stunt double, just walking around and dragging the leg. I could have put a hump on and gone, the bells, and you wouldn't have noticed the difference. So it was a relief when the leg came off, to be honest. I was actually described as the happiest amputee that the nurses had ever met because I was not in so much pain. I wasn't. I mean, the longer it went on, the more aggressive, the more antisocial I was becoming. You know, you'd go out and buy a pair of trainers, and within a week they're ruined because you're dragging the leg. So it's ripping the trainers apart, and you're just so frustrated.
Yeah.
I was on benefits because work had said I was unable to safely carry out my duties. So they'd sort of, you're unfit for, you're no longer able to work. So I was on benefits, and size 13 trainers aren't exactly cheap.
I guess that wouldn't have been my initial thought when hearing about you becoming an amputee, that it was a relief, because I think, at least from my limited knowledge of people who are amputees, and I don't know many, but you just assume that, oh my gosh, you was born with 2 legs, you've been walking around, or 2 arms, or whatever, went missing. And you just think, oh my gosh, it must be so gut-wrenching. But then if you've had pain before and discomfort, maybe that is a relief, but it's just not something you'd know if you're not in that person's shoes or in their circle and they confide in you and tell you.
For about 2 years of absolute agony that would wake you up during the night. You'd have to drag the leg because if you walk normally and put your foot flat, shooting pain all the way up your leg, like a red hot poker.
Ouch.
The leg didn't bend properly anyway. So when it come off or was removed or whatever you want, I mean, technically, I've not lost my leg. It's only lost if you don't know where it is. Mine's in the furnace in the local hospital, so I know where it is. It's just not attached at the moment.
Fair.
So technically, I didn't lose my leg. I just misplaced it.
Sounds like you trade it in for a blue badge, if I'm honest.
Yeah, pretty much. But as I said, free parking.
There we go, folks. Silver lining. He got a blue badge, lost a leg. Yeah, there we go. Every L. So I was going to ask, with the fact that you was in a lot of discomfort, how long would you say discomfort was for? Because 2018 is when the amputation happened. How long had you been suffering this discomfort for? And was it something that you kept to yourself or other people knew about?
It began in late 2016, early 2017, so it was over a year. And you couldn't help it because I was just dragging the leg. You couldn't help but notice that I'm dragging the leg. I can't walk properly. And if I did try and get upstairs, it was swear powered.
Wow.
It was just that painful. It's weird to say that I have a better quality of life as an amputee than I did the time before my leg come off.
And then prior to 2016, 2017, did you notice a decline or deterioration of the use of that leg?
Maybe I ignored it because I was still going out. I was going running with my webbing, which is your military equipment on. I was going to the gym, pretty active life. So my leg played up now and again. Oh, it's probably just the shrapnel shifting or I've banged it at work. I was a doorman. So you get knocked into tables, you get things thrown at you. Oh, my leg hurts. Always seem to get the same leg. So whether I was purposely blacking it out or just ignorant is anybody's guess. But finally had to take action when the leg just wouldn't work.
Yeah, because I'm just trying to have a clearer understanding, because for my understanding is that, again, the approach to the time when a decision was need to be made, whether to keep it and suffer the pain and it potentially get worse, or you make the decisive choice to just cut it off and hopefully have better quality of life. Yeah. But if you sort of noticed that there was a deterioration, I can only imagine how frustrating it could have been, because someone that's had the active life you've had previously, to then coming into here and, you know, no longer doing that job, now doing living the life you was living, still being active, doing your exercise, going gym, and then you're finding that don't feel 100%. I'm feeling a good 60% right now. And you're trying to soldier through it, and then you're just feeling like, I can't do this anymore. Must have been frustrating.
Yeah, because I probably did more damage because I wouldn't accept that I'd got limitations. I was going to crack on with a smile, take the mick and just crack on. And that's probably why my body finally said, no more. It's not happening. We're going to go on strike.
So remind me again, what was the time scale between the diagnosis of going and like having that scan and them saying you're going to have it removed?
About 16, maybe 18 months.
So when you first had the scan, did you even think that was going to be a possibility that they were going to offer to make you an amputee?
No, I thought some tablets, maybe a scar down my leg if they had to operate. Well, technically they were right. I've still got a scar down where my leg used to be.
Just a different type of scar to what you first thought it was going to be.
Yeah, just in a different location.
And when you first went for the scan, you was like, okay, cool. They're a bit concerned. They're giving me crutches to sort of get on and get around. Did you ever sort of think that could be where you end up and actually think could be a point where they might think it's worth cutting it off? Or you might want to cut it off because you was in so much discomfort?
About 6 months in to the process of them checking, they warned me it was a possibility.
And what was that conversation like to hear?
At the time, and I still stand by it, it was a relief. I actually said to them, I just want to be out of pain. If I have to lose the limb, I'll lose the limb. Because I was in that much... When I went for physio after, one of the physiotherapists was talking to me while I'm on the treadmill. And she said, I can't imagine how much pain you must have been in to actually volunteer to have your leg removed rather than see what they could do to save it. And I said I didn't want to rattle when I walked because I was on that much pain medication. You know, I was taking morphine at one... I was getting a prescription for morphine and I looked like I was a stroke victim.
Damn.
Because my face had dropped, my words were slurring. They tried me on tramadol and that was fatal because I'd take that, 20 minutes later I would be asleep. I would sleep exactly for 60 minutes. I would wake up, and if you spoke to me, come within 10 foot of me, I took it as a threat, and I was physically aggressive towards people. So I come off that pretty quick. You know, it was. I certainly couldn't go out the house because I'd have fought everybody. So
and how did that make you feel then?
Aggressive.
Beyond that, how did it feel knowing that there were things that were potentially beyond your control, because that is not who you are, and if that is who you are, you choose to be that in that situation, but at this point that was taken away from you?
It was scary because I couldn't control myself. The aggression was there. I don't know if it was the frustration, the meds, a mixture of both, but I knew I couldn't live life like that. And if removing the leg would restore me back to the charming, good-looking, jovial guy that I am, rather than a cross between Freddy Krueger and Anthony Perkins. I didn't want to be a psychopath. I didn't want to be someone who, if you came near me, I wanted to chin you. Excuse me, sorry. I didn't want to be a person that was that aggressive. They tried the pain meds so that I could keep the leg, but as time went on, the pain meds weren't working. It was just a realisation, I'm going to lose this leg.
And then that was a sense of comfort because you felt you was going to gain more than you was going to lose.
Yeah, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I'll be out of pain. Yes, being an amputee is not going to be easy. You're going to have to deal with phantom pain, stairs, which is still a nemesis. But I'll be out of pain and I can live a reasonable life.
You mentioned phantom pain. For those, like, I'm fairly familiar with that, but for those that do not know, please, in your own words, explain what phantom pain is.
Phantom pain is, it's like cramp and a burning sensation in a limb that you haven't got. I still wake up some nights, my leg is at the side of the bed, but in the leg that's missing, I've got cramp, either in a calf that I haven't got or in a foot that I haven't got. And there is nothing that can shift it.
And you have the real pain and the sensation of it.
Real pain, real cramp, real burning. And you just have to sit there, ride it out, and watch episode after episode of Judge Judy, because it's the only thing on at that time of night. But I'm learning a lot about American law.
Good TV. It's incredible to sort of hear that you have to make a decision, but then going back to, and there's no comparison to it, but just to sort of, in my limited discomfort I feel, my eyesight, the fact that I feel that I can't read things as well as I'd like to without wearing glasses, feels like, I don't want to do it. And it's kind of like having to succumb to going, well, I'm going to gain more from having them, because at least I can do something about it than not having them. And if you're telling me,
if they were causing you pain as well, and the glasses were the only thing that was going to solve it, because it was causing you that much pain and discomfort, you'd wear it. It's a similar thing. It's just a different part of the body.
Yeah. And that's the thing I was trying to make the connection with, in terms of it's different, but it's not too dissimilar. One's more extreme and more impactful, but it's just the fact that, a pair of glasses, a lot of people wear them for fashion. Having a leg taken off, I don't see many people doing that for fashion. If they are, they might need to see a doctor for a different reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's something where not a lot of people have maybe encountered a lot of people that are amputees or have a disability that is seen or unseen, and had a lengthy conversation about how they feel. And for me, I'm a very inquisitive guy. I've got no problem asking questions. I try to be as sensitive as possible, but I want you to feel seen. I want you to feel heard, and people take interest in your life, because let's not skirt around and not ask you questions because I don't want to offend you. Don't get you wrong. Do not offend people if you don't want to, because that's the right thing to do. But sometimes people want to talk about it because it's obvious, and they don't want you to make assumptions. If you want to ask a question, I'm happy to have the conversation in some capacity. But hearing you talk about it as eloquently as you have done,
thank you.
It just opens my eyes to sort of think, could I ever be at a point where I would be willing to do something like that in order to feel better, have a higher sense of quality of life? And the answer is, I think I would say yes, because what would be the benefit of me holding on to something of the past that's not even really there or function as I would like it to? I might also embrace this new normal, but at the same time, you get that anxiety of going, I'm excited, but I'm scared because all I've known is what I've got. Now I'm going to go into something, it's unknown.
It's a new adventure, but if you look at it as, if your car breaks down and you can never ever repair it, it will never work again. But as a result of keeping it, you're going to alienate your wife, your kids. You're going to be snarling, snappy, and aggressive to other people because of the pain. Then it's better to get rid of it and think, well, this is going to be a new chapter, than to keep on to it and become something, or slowly turn into something that you're not happy with. And I wasn't happy the way I was. I was just so aggressive, so nasty. And it's a guy my height and build. That's not a good thing. Is I'm in pain, and if you can't see me when I'm walking down the street because you're too busy on your phone, I'm quite happy to push you into oncoming traffic. And if you want to argue about it, I'm quite happy to get physical. It's not who I am. But I was turning into someone. I mean, I didn't actually do that. It's just an example. But I was turning into somebody that I didn't like.
And that must have been difficult. So even after making the decision of saying, yep, I volunteer my leg, who was there with you when you made that decision in the doctor's office, if there was anyone?
It was only a decision that only I could make, because you can ask people. You can ask anybody. I could have asked my kids, my girlfriend, anybody. all they're going to say is, it's not my life, it's not me that's got to live with it, it's not me that's got to adapt. It's got to be my decision. And I didn't take long. As soon as he said, well, there's your options. You can keep it, and it could go up your leg, into your knee, eventually into your back, or we can take your leg. You'll wear a prosthetic or be in a wheelchair for the rest of your life, but it might cure it. There was no decision to make. There was no thinking about it. It's unconventional at best, but it was what's best for me, because I didn't want to sit. I knew I couldn't go back into the security trade. I would totally, at 50 years old, I would have to retrain to do a different line of work, which luckily I'm pretty good at IT. So I did IT courses and what have you, but I'll get into that later. But I didn't want to sit on benefits. I couldn't do my current job in the security trade because I couldn't get licensed couldn't stand at some points. So it's easier just to, let's just take the leg, get a prosthetic, learn to walk again, and crack on with my life rather than sit there and feel sorry for myself.
I hear you. And did you ever think about what life with and without the leg would look like in terms of the impact it would have with your interaction with your family, your day-to-day lives? And was that also a factor for you saying, yeah, I will just have to relearn that rather than having to relearn my career and everything else like that?
I knew the people around me would support me and help me in any way they could. And they did, to be fair. To be honest, when I lost the leg, I found out who my true friends were. It's scary to think, and I've heard every amputee loses at least 3 friends when they lose a limb. And it is true. I found out who my true friends were. But it wasn't a factor, it was just, I want the leg off, I want a normal life. All right, it's not going to be normal as your life with all 4 limbs. There are going to have to be some adaptations. But it's better than what I'm coping with at the moment, because my answer to everything was aggression.
That's interesting because, again, something not many people would have associated with, like losing a limb potentially means losing relationships, because people now may not want to engage with someone who might slow them down, in quotation marks, or can't do what they used to do. So it's sort of like, I don't want to be that person that hangs out with someone that's just making a bit of a scene. And, you know, you hear about people that have children at young age, how they lose friends because, like, again, I can't do the stuff you used to do, so I'm going to keep going and you catch up when you can, which might be years to come. Yeah. So I guess it's just a side of things where not many people have always understood that part of it, where there's intangibles that you lose beyond losing a limb in the manner that you did.
Yeah, but you've also got to consider that a lot of my decisions was the military mindset. We don't let it slow us down. If I'm having a better life or got a better chance of a better life through losing a limb, well, so be it. I'll just have to adapt. Rather than a lot of people would just give up and go, no, I want to keep the leg and deal with the pain. I'll deal with a walking stick. No, I'm too young to be using a walking stick every day. I would rather put my leg on and walk than keep my leg and use a walking stick and be in constant pain. There are some days, you know, when you've been for a long walk and you get home and you've got the cup of coffee and you take your shoes off, that relief.
Yeah.
I get the same relief some days if I've done too much and I take my leg off. And it's just, oh, that is so nice. You know, it's the same thing, it's just slightly higher up. But it's a lot of it is the military mindset that I incurred from the army of, well, let's just crack on, worry about the consequences later. This could be an adventure. This could be fun. And through it, I've met nice people like you, whereas before I would lose people because I was just so short-tempered, so argumentative. I was in pain. Didn't really want to talk to people. I didn't want to associate with many people. I was becoming more withdrawn, and when I did have to interact, aggression was my first answer. Because I just wanted to, I was using that aggression to push through to everything, but it was becoming my first response to everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's sort of like your first form of defense is being offensive.
Yeah.
So it was just a matter of, this is my space. I'm protecting at all costs. I don't want to move. I don't want to do what I don't want to do. So let me lash out at you and keep you at arm's length. And I've done that many a times. Not proud of saying it, but I identify when I do certain things because it's just sometimes how I respond to situations. So when you had the amputation, what was the aftercare like? And did your friends that no longer were your friends, did they drop off sort of immediately, or was it gradual?
No, it was, you'd reach out to them and say, look, can you do me a favour? You know, they were all aware that I was going to the hospital. I was having my leg amputated. There was people that I sort of was surprised when they stepped up. You know, they turn up at the hospital at odd hours and go, right, I've just finished work. I've bought you 20 cigs. I've got you a bottle of Coke. I've got you a bottle. And you think, I'd never expected it from you. But there were people that you'd sort of think, we've been friends for years. I've bailed you out of how much trouble. And suddenly they'd change the number, or they wouldn't reply to WhatsApps. They wouldn't pick up the phone. And you think, yeah, I know where your loyalties lie. You know, now I need a favour. I actually physically need a favour. You don't want to know. Whether it's because you don't want to associate with me because I'm disabled, or like you said, or you're going to slow me down. I can't do this, I can't do that with you, so I don't want to know you anymore.
And how did you deal with those feelings then? Because I'd imagine you had a little bit of time, I say little because it was probably a long, lengthy time, on the recovery process.
18 months.
Sit with your own thoughts and feelings now that you've done it, because this is my take on it. Correct me if I'm wrong. You have what I think it's going to be, how I think it's going to go, and then when you're on the other side, you go, oh, so this is what it's like. Slightly different to how I might have interpreted it to be.
I had no idea. I'd not met any other amputees prior to it. There isn't a lot of us about, to be fair. You can go your whole life without meeting an amputee. I know a lot of people that I'm the first amputee they've met, and it still shocks them, but that could be my behaviour anyway. But I've not spent any time. The way I saw it was, I've got no expectations. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a challenge. So you just crack on and do the best that you can. Later on, when I was at the prosthetic centre doing physio, there was a poster on the wall for a charity called Blessma, the British Limbless Ex-Servicemen's Association. So I gave them a call, and they went, yeah, we deal for life any veteran that has lost a limb or use of limb, whether in or out of service. And sign me up. Sign me up for it. And they did. And the day I got my membership confirmed, they phoned me up and they said, are you available on Saturday? I says, to do what? They went bucket collect down at the West Ham ground in Stratford. And yeah, I'll give that a go. You know, it's got to be a laugh. So I went down there, and I wasn't the only one there. There was a lot of other veterans, missing arms, missing legs, all with a similar sense of humour to me, but further along in the progress. Some had lost it in combat. Some had lost it through motorcycle accidents or stupid things that squaddies and people get up to. But I was instantly made to feel welcome. Oh, you're part of the team. you're a veteran, you've lost a limb. The banter was like being back in the service. So for mental health wise, we're all winding each other up and nothing's off the table. I mean, there was a guy there, he'd lost 2 legs and an arm in Afghanistan. And he's saddled up to me and he's looked me up and down and he went, "How come you're a member?" He says, "That's a bloody scratch." And I went, "I'm getting gobbed from a bowling ball." I says, "That's brave, innit?" And he just looked at me, laughed, hugged me, and we've been friends ever since.
Oh, that's nice.
You know, but it's just that banter. And they were there because they could say, "Right, how long have you been an amputee?" "Well, this is my first leg." "Right, so you're 18 months in." Because it takes 18 months for the stump to actually heal. So you can, so he says, "Right, you're 18 months in. This is what's going to happen next. This is how you deal with it. Here's my number. If you need help, give me a call." I've met people since then, and I've spoken to them doing events and stupid things like abseiling off the London Orbital in Stratford to raise money for the charity. And I've said to people, "How long have you been an amputee?" "About 18 months. "Right, this is what's going to happen next. This is how you deal with it." So it's gone full circle because they're to help others. We all know what we're going through. We've all got similar backgrounds. We still abuse each other every chance we get, you know, but it's harmless fun. It's like being back in the service, but we're there to support each other.
Do you find having that camaraderie with those individuals really helpful
Yes.
than it was prior to the 18 months? So when you just had your amputation, you're learning about who's your real friend, who's not your real friend, who's your friend because they want to be your friend, they like you as an individual, versus, it was convenient, or I need a reason to just leave. And then, you know, that period, and now you have these people that are like yours, you know, the people you served with. Do you think it's really important to have people that can understand what you're going through?
Yeah.
And sort of give you the steer to say, these are probably some of the emotions you're going to be feeling. This is a roller coaster you're going to be on. This is the dance you're going to feel. Some days you're going to go to the left. Some days you're going to go to the right.
Yeah.
Some days you're going to shimmy forward. Sometimes you're going to spin around and feel a bit woozy. And
It's great for a doctor to turn around and go, "Well, you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days." And you go, "Well, you've got all 4 limbs. How would you know?" I'm talking to a guy who's got 2 legs missing. "Oh, I have this problem. I have that problem." I've met a guy by pure chance, and he's never served, but he lost a limb later in life. And he said to me, he says, "How do you cope?" And we sit and we chat, and I'll tell him, "Right, this is," because the bit you stick your stump in is called the socket, and there are several different sockets for amputees. You can have ones that have got a metal pin that hold it in place. My one's held on by a vacuum. It's a suction, what's called a suction socket. Now, I find that a lot more comfortable because psychologically, if you've got one with a big metal pin sticking out, you're frightened to step down because you think that pin's going to bang into my stump. And I've like you, to use your terms, I passed it forward and I said to him, "Have a word with your anaesthetist, get a suction socket. You'll find it builds your confidence more because you're landing on air rather than metal." And he's followed that advice. And when I last spoke to him, he went, "Whole new lease of life because I've got the suction socket. I didn't like the pin because, like you said, every time I step forward, I'm thinking I'm going to bang my stump on that metal pin." You don't, but it's there in the back of your head. It's, you take your leg off and you look down and you've got a big metal pin about so big sticking out the bottom of your stump. You think, well, when I put that on, so it's good to help other people that are in a similar situation, because you know what you went through, and really you don't want anybody else to go through it. And if you can guide them on the way, that's my good deed for the day. I can then be a total swine to every bugger else because I've helped somebody.
Yeah, give that a go. Do you think, and I understand that you are a bit of a I think probably no, because of your previous career, and maybe just how you are. I don't know because I never met you prior. But when you were going through those times where there were some people, like you said, I didn't expect that from you, and for those that you did expect it from, just went AWOL. How did you react to those feelings about people you expected more from, but they just didn't deliver?
I was annoyed, but I was concentrating more on recovery than I'm not going to let them live rent free up there.
Yeah.
It's fine. If that's the way you want to be, I know who my friends are. You can disappear. I will concentrate my efforts on my recovery, because in 6 months, a year, 2 years' time, I'll be back on my foot. I'll be coping. I'll be doing well. And karma will come and bite you in the arse. You'll be in trouble. You'll need my help, and I'll not answer my WhatsApps. I'll not answer my phone calls. And you can sort of realise, I'm not going to think about it. I'm grateful for all those that did help me, but those that didn't, not giving them the headspace, don't care. I've got other things to worry about, like learning to walk, seeing how much I can do stupid things like go swimming and not cause a tidal pull because I'm swimming in a circle. I was concentrating more on my recovery and thinking, well, I don't want you in my life. It's just, they're just not worth the effort.
And how many people, roughly, would you say from your friendship group that you'd lost?
3, maybe 4.
Because I really asked the question, because when you said, I'm not going to focus on you because I know who my real friends are, what happened, if it did, when you thought, I'm not going to focus on you, I know who my real friends are, and you're counting those friends, and you counted 1 or 2 of them, and then you realise, oh, crumb, you're not one of them either.
Yeah, it was just, well, saves me buying you and your kids Christmas presents. It's saving me money, because the way I saw it, call it conceited, call it arrogance, call it confidence. In 6 months' time, I'll be back on my foot. I'll be progressing. I will handle this. And I'll be doing better than I am now. And you might see me and I might be driving a nice car. I might have a shiny new leg. I'll be doing better than I am now. And you can get jealous because go to the pub, you've got to walk up all the way upstairs in the Wetherspoons. I don't. I've got one of them keys that lets me into the downstairs toilets. But you'll see me and I'll be doing fine. And it'll be you that will miss our friendship more than I will miss yours.
Yeah. But you had that mental fortitude to know that you would do all right without them.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? Would you still say that's from when you were serving?
Yeah. I've lost 4 friends that I counted on. But I've made more, like your good self, because I'm so outgoing, because I'm going to crack on regardless. I've made more than 4 friends since that, looking back, now you're making me think about it, have been better friends to me since than they were before.
Because I asked a question then. At what point do you think it was your lowest point around losing your leg?
I don't think I had one. The hospital actually said, the nurses would say that I was the happiest amputee they'd ever met. And I knew that once the leg come off, all right, it looked in the bandages like a ping pong ball paddle had been grafted to the end of my leg because it was that swollen. But I was the happiest amputee going because I was out of pain and I knew I was on the road to recovery. It wouldn't be an easy road, but I was instantly not in as much pain, not as much discomfort. I could sleep. Maybe that was because of the morphine that they'd got me up to. But I was on the road to recovery. I was back slowly to the person I was. I could laugh, I could joke. I've got a picture of me about 3 days after the amputation, in my wheelchair, in the position, you know, the disabled badge sign that
Yeah.
you get in car parks. I've got one of me imitating it in a car park in the exact same position. I put a hoodie on my stump with my stump sticking out the hood and posted it as ET. You know, I was back to the laughing, the joking, the me, because my sense of humour gets me through so much. Also gets me into a lot of trouble, but it gets me through so much.
Yeah.
You'd got a more positive mental attitude because I was now out of pain. The next job is get well, recover.
So do you think your worst stage was prior
Yeah.
to having? So when was that then? Was that when you was on all drugs and you was just not in control of yourself?
Yeah. The pain was horrendous. I was becoming someone that I didn't like, and I'm surprised at the people who stuck around that had faith in me and were sticking around because they wanted to help me through it. But yeah, the lowest point would have been prior because I was just in so much pain and I was turning into somebody I wasn't.
And then did you ask for help from anybody, friends, family, doctors?
No.
And what was the reason for that?
Once I was going through the medical process, so the doctors were giving me the help that I needed. There was nothing anybody else could do. And I didn't want to ask people, call it selfish, but I didn't want to say to somebody, can you help me with this? Because they would feel bad if they couldn't. So I would rather do it myself, cope with it, knowing that if ever I asked, they would be there. But I'm not going to lean on anybody too much because something like that, it's something you've got to deal with both physically and mentally yourself.
So you think you dealt with it in a healthy way or unhealthy way?
I think I dealt with it very helpfully because looking back now, or you making me look back at it now, it was pure logic. I could have easily become somebody that was so dependent on others that I become lazy. But if I make myself do it, I push myself, then you've got, like you said, the mental fortitude. Otherwise, I'd have been so dependent on other people, I wouldn't be where I am now.
So this is slightly different because I have a follow-up question before I get to it.
Yeah.
But normally I would ask the person, if you could go back in time to like the lowest point of this situation, and you said it is prior to the amputation, it was when you was in that much pain, what would you say to your younger self to push through and not give up? But it sounds like you've had a good way of coping with all adversity, at least with this.
Yeah.
Do you think there is something you would say to your younger self to handle it in a different way, or are you happy with how you dealt with it?
I would say to them, this is the winner of the Grand National for the next 2 years. Make sure you put a decent amount of money on. So when we get through this, we're loaded. I've seen Back to the Future too. I would have done that.
Just change up the future altogether. That doesn't work. In this scenario, your reality remains the same, but you just have the opportunity to talk to your younger self and just encourage if you could. Do you think there's any words of wisdom you'd want to impart on yourself, or do you think I'm happy with how the land laid at that point?
I've thought about this many a time, that exact question. And no, there is nothing I could have said or said to my younger self that would change anything. I firmly stand by what I did and the reasons that I did it, and don't regret a single one.
That's great to hear. And the follow-up question I have, because I assume that might have been the answer, is how do you have the positive mental attitude that you have? Because that's something, is one of the things that drew me to you, is just your attitude towards situation. And I know sometimes it can be performative, because I think a lot of us, when we're in that zone, it's just our default. It's like, we're joking, we're laughing, but at the same time, it's like, I'm not 100%, but I can still muster up enough to deliver that side of me. but you have just always been that way, and to have gone through the career you've had, to have the hardships that you've faced in terms of your leg, from it being fully functional to then not working as you'd like it to then having to make a decision that worked out to, to liberate you in some capacity. But then at the same time, you and I had the conversation about the fireworks and stuff like that, but you still managed to have this positive mental attitude, which I have got so much time for. Not just yourself, but just how you're able to turn it on, and well, not even turn it on. I just think that's you. I could be wrong, but it I think it's endearing, and I think it's lovely, and I'd just love to know, how did you manage to acquire such a wonderful skill and ability?
I'd like to say it's natural, but I do think that if you think bad things, then bad things happen to you. You think positively, then bad things still happen to you, but you don't worry about them so much because you can see the outcome. You look at a glass and you say, is it half empty or half full? I see it as full because you've got half water, half oxygen. So it's full of something. It's just, like you said on the introduction, I have a different way of looking at things. Pain is temporary. In this case, it was about 18 months, but I lost a leg. But I've gained a lot of good friends, and I've gained, as you said, a blue badge and free parking. So there's a positive outcome. People sometimes dwell on, this is going to get worse, that's not going to do your mental health any good. Not in my opinion. Crap happens to good people. You yourself, I'm sure you've had a lot in your life, and you've dealt with it. You still smile, you still laugh. When I see you, you're always chuckling and always got some funny stories to tell. But I think it's just my way of dealing with it. It's just to laugh at it, whether it's self-deprecating or just find something funny about it. Not everybody gets that humour. Some are offended by it, which again makes me laugh even more because I'm thinking, why are you offended? I went out a while ago and went to a Sea Life Centre, and I went, do you do discounts for veterans or spazzers? And he stopped and he went, I'm sorry. I says, do you do discounts for veterans or spazzers, disabled people? He went, first I would need proof of disability or proof of service. So I've taken out my wallet. I says, there's my veteran's card. Took my leg off, put that on the counter and says, does that prove disability? Waving me stump at him. And he's, can you give me a moment, please? I says, if you want to laugh, just laugh, mate. You won't offend. Now, can I put my leg back on because I prove disability? Yeah, sure. So I put my leg back on because I have my jeans and trousers cut to allow air circulation so you can see my leg. But people don't always look at your legs as you walk in. So the look on his face, it was brilliant. And it kept me chuckling for the entire day while I was going around the Sea Life Centre with my discount for being a spaz. But people go, well, you can't say that. Well, I can, you can't. And if you're offended by that term, why are you offended when I'm the one using the term? I'm taking the mick out of me, not you.
I just find it's such an endearing quality to have, and I do like how you mentioned that bad things happen and it's not going to make it any better by still seeing it as simply bad. I like to look at situations where, yes, it's bad, like, oh my gosh, I'm in darkness, but yeah, anything that has a shadow is going to be dark. You just got to look for the light source that's casting the shadow. So keep looking, keep going, keep persevering. And I think it ultimately boils down to, whenever people struggle to find a way of being positive, I'll say, what would you say to the young person in your life that you have access to? Would you let them just throw their hands up and say, oh, I can't do it, and just let them go, yeah, you're right, you can't, bye? Or would you try and find something to encourage them to keep pushing forward? And why wouldn't you say the same thing to yourself in those tough times?
When I was going through my prosthetics and doing the rehabilitation and learning to walk again, there was a young lad there, must have been about 18, 19, and he'd lost his leg, funnily enough, in a knife attack. And he'd lost his leg. And he was full of depression. And I sat there and I went, what is your problem? And I've lost my leg. I went, so you're going to sit in a wheelchair for the rest of your life? And he's, well, if need be, I says, how long have you been an amputee? Over a year, year and a half. I said, well, I'm new to this. Shouldn't you be encouraging me? Well, there's no point. Says, nah. I said, before I leave this place, you will be walking. And I said to the physio, I said, has he got a leg? He went, yeah, he won't use it. I said, strap it on. What? I said, put your leg on. Let's see. Get down the parallel bars. I says, you're an ugly git, but there will be some desperate bird that'll want to sleep with you. I says, if you're going to do it in a wheelchair, not much fun. I says, strap your leg on. I says, off you go. You might pull somebody. I says, prove me wrong. So we strapped his leg on, and it took him a while, and it took me about 3 months. But before I'd finished my physio, he was walking. And I saw him one day when I was having a review, and he went, thanks for the kick up the arse. I went, kick up the arse from a one-legged man. How do you feel? And he laughed at me. And he went, no, I appreciated that. He says, because I know there was a couple of other people he says, for want of a better word, bullied into putting a leg on and actually doing it. I says, they've spent a fortune measuring your stump, making it, getting your prosthetic done. For you to sit in a £400 wheelchair, I says, what's the point? I says, you've got the leg, you just need the drive to do it. I says, you're going to have a better quality of life with a leg on than you are in a wheelchair. I says, because there are people out there who've got no choice but to use a wheelchair. You have. And he went, no, I never thought about it like that. And there was a couple of people there I openly admit, I bullied. Come on, get up. Surprise your wife. You know, there was a bloke there, he'd lost it through diabetes. And I said, when he's, well, I don't see the point. I says, when's your wedding anniversary? 6 months from now. I says, wouldn't it be nice to get up, put your leg on, put a suit on, and actually take your wife dancing? He says, how am I supposed to dance? I says, take your leg off and try and stay upright. I says, certainly throwing some shapes. I says, but could you dance? He says, yeah, me and the wife used to love ballroom dancing. I says, imagine the look on her face and the pride. If you put your leg on and took a ballroom dancing for your wedding anniversary. And he went, yeah, you're right. I said, right. And again, I saw him and he's, can I buy you a coffee? He says, yeah, you want? He says, I just want to thank you from me and my wife. He says, because I did exactly what you said. He says, I listened to you. I learned to walk again. He says, and I took the wife dancing. He says, I didn't tell her. He says, got in my suit, put my leg on. He says, I'd organised it all and said to her, right, come with me. He says, we went out dancing for our wedding anniversary. He says, she cried because it was so nice. She didn't realise I'd learnt to walk and that I was saving it. I said, there you go. And if ever he sees me, and I see him occasionally, he always sees me, can I buy you a coffee, Nick? No, you've bought me one, you've thanked me, save your money, take your wife dancing. It's nice to give back.
But that's the thing, and I think everyone's sort of getting a glimpse of one of the many reasons why I've got so much time for you. You're just such an uplifting guy, and you just, through, even if you didn't have these adversities you've been through, you just seem to have that energy, that ability to find a way of tapping into a person and finding what their desires are and just going, right, what is going on in your life? This, cool. And just giving them a beeline to sort of focus on. And that is strength. And also, you being through your adversities. And I remember you telling me one time, when you was at work and someone was complaining about their situation, you got up and you walked past them and they saw you with your leg. Like, that makes it even madder because people be like, "Oh, woe is me, life is hard." And it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, you keep telling me that, yeah, just gotta go photocopy something, and you walk past them, and they look at you, walk bravely on your one leg, and they go, "Oh, crumb,
Yeah.
ouch." And it's like, well, if someone in your situation can be the way you are, and the good thing is, it's not just a one-off that you're this way. This is you on a regular.
Yeah.
It's a matter of, wow, if someone in the nicest possible way in your situation can be able to wear a smile on a day-to-day basis, what am I missing? Why can't I do? And that's one of the things I love about you, because I do try to encourage people where possible. I've said it many a times. I said, if I walk through a door and I see there's space in here for other people, I've got no harm in leaving that door open and letting and ushering people in, because I'm not in competition with anybody else. Like, if you win, doesn't mean I lose, because we're not competing for the same thing. So I'm okay with that.
You've got nothing to prove to anybody. You're a confident man. You're good at what you do. You know your abilities. And like you said, you're not competing with anybody. So you can be who you are. And if you see someone without a smile, give them yours.
Yeah. Might have to charge them, but yeah, they can have it.
Yeah, come on. You know me, Grace.
So what I'll ask you then, because there's nothing you would say to your younger self, you lost your leg, you seem to be liberated by losing that leg in the condition that it was in. If you wouldn't consider that as an L, what would you call that experience?
I would call it, no, I like your word, liberating. Yeah. So it is an L, just not the same L that you use. It was a liberated moment because I can prove, like you said earlier, with me getting up, people complaining of their ailments, and I just get up and walk, or whatever you describe my gait as. It's a liberated moment, but it proves that even at 50, which is when I lost the leg, you can achieve whatever you put your mind to, as long as you've got that mindset. And if you can do it with a smile and help other people on the way, where's the harm?
I've just got so much time for that.
I've actually got a T-shirt that actually says, "What are you staring at, you two-legged freak?" And the amount of people that see that, then they look down and they see the leg, and it causes that many smiles.
Yeah.
That I wear it and people see it, look, laugh, and wish me a good day as they walk past.
No, that's good. One thing I'll do, which I don't normally do, but it's only because I think there's value in it, and I trust you, because I love how you present yourself. What would you say to anybody that is either an amputee, who may be hearing this, newly or experienced? Experienced is the right word? Not sure. Probably insensitive. I apologise. Or someone who has the option to have a limb removed through a condition of some sort. What would you say to them if they're considering it and are fearful of it?
It will only work if you've got the choice. Think about it for the long term. For me, I knew my leg would never get better. You know, I'm importing shrapnel round my body for a while. I knew it would never get better. So for me, it's going to be life-changing for anybody. But for me, it was liberating. If you've got the choice, try and keep your limb. But if you haven't, then embrace the adventure and do it with a positive attitude. Think of something that you want to achieve, 6 months down the line, a year down the line, when you get your first limb. Set yourself little goals, because you think, well, 6 months down the line, I want to be able to have a wheelchair race with my mate. Fine, 6 months' time, do it. You've built up the upper body. A year's time, I'm using a limb, sort of, I want to cook a meal for my girlfriend. A year and a half's time, I want to be able to walk round the park, even if it's 100 metres, and feel grass underneath my real foot. Set yourself little goals. because they boost your own morale. Because I didn't think I could do that 6 months ago. Didn't think I could do that a year ago. But consider it, and if it is your best option, then embrace it and crack on.
And if there's someone that newly amputated or someone that's been amputated for a while but are just feeling hard and lacks the motivation to see beyond their current situation,
then if you're newly amputated, it gets better. And it's not as bleak as you think. And it does attract. Kids are fascinated by it. They will ask the awkward questions, but it's because it's so rare. Embrace it. It's not going to grow back. It take me a while. Deadpool can grow it back in half an hour. I'm 8 years in later this, in the next couple of months, and it's still not grown back. It's not going to grow back. So make the most of what you can while you can. And if you're been doing it for a while and you're down, think of the times when you were happy. It's only a phone call to the prosthetic centre to get your limb changed so it fits, and you can go back to the normal life or semi-normal life and stop being down. Staring at four walls isn't going to help. Getting out, making people freak out when they realise you've got a prosthetic leg. I've been out at times, and without thinking, I've walked into a table in a restaurant, and you know that awkward plunk, and people think, oh, he's hurt himself. And then everybody's looking at me, and I've realised I walked into it with my prosthetic. I can't feel it. I look super hard. And you just smile back at people and go, well, I've had people travelling on public transport, and they'll be sat there, they won't say anything, and they'll just stare. So I have fun. I take it off and just put it next to me. And they all immediately look away. And you think, you know that I know you're staring, so I'm now making you feel uncomfortable. But you'll find people will ask questions and they'll go, you all right? Yeah. What happened? Oh, it was a game of hopscotch that went tragically wrong. Most people are fascinated by it because, as you said, it's not something you come across. Talk about it. Things like this podcast is great because people like you know what you're doing. So I don't mind talking about it. I don't mind any questions because it helps other people and it gets it off your mind. I'll never be normal because of my mental health.
Debatable.
My brain's that damaged it can't even do one push-up.
Yeah, don't even try it. You're a great guy. And I really like the words you've said there because I can't speak on behalf of people that are disabled to your extent. And I may say it in the most respectful way, but I will champion them. I will support them where possible. And like I mentioned before, I will ask questions because I feel that you want to at least be acknowledged to say, you can see it. Don't act like you can't see it. Let's have a conversation if you have a conversation. But I've learned so much about it, and my children learn about it because I will talk about people with disabilities and why you shouldn't park in a bay that's got a disabled sign, and people that do that are not disabled. I know I shouldn't judge, but at the same time I do judge and say, well, that's not fair because there's people that have got a number of disabilities for why they need to park there. And I could not forget this story where there was a shop outside a place I used to work, and it's only a corner shop, and people used to park there just to jump in, grab their cigarettes and jump out and stuff like that. But there'll be a disabled person that would have to park way down yonder. Yeah. It'll take them forever to walk down there, and they were telling me about how they didn't like doing it because they had people, mainly children, look at them and discuss about their physical appearance, and it made them feel uncomfortable. And it's not that wasn't the thing that originally annoyed me about why the person was parking outside there. It was because wrong is wrong. But hearing that someone had to do that, to go to a shop and have to experience it because someone, out of sheer selfishness, parked in their space or a space that was allocated for someone in their capacity, it was like, that's heart-wrenching. So why wouldn't I then advocate for people in those situations at all opportunities? and just give you a platform. If you want to talk about it, let's talk about it. The more I learn, the better I can be as a human being to have empathy in other people in those situations.
Tesco's at Gallows Corner, before the flyover was closed, implemented 1 week that they were going to charge people for parking in the disabled bays that weren't displaying a blue badge. And they did it for about 6 weeks. And they said any money we raise is going to charity. It is frightening to think that they raised about £40,000 because they had a marker inside the Tesco's saying how much they'd earned from this. But in about 6 weeks, they'd earned 40 grand to donate to charity by people parking in disabled bays that weren't entitled to.
Wow. It's shocking. And it just shows the length people go to shows the length people go to just do things for convenience over what the right thing to do. And I also have the issue of where I see people park in children's bay and they got no child, and it's just convenient because it's a little bit close, and you're thinking both of my doors, because I've got 3 kids, are open. So when you're forcing me to park in a narrow bay, that's not helpful. That's selfish. But people will do what people do, and I'm just happy that you're able to be out here doing what you do. And I know you've done some amazing work. I will ask you to talk about it in a bit as we wrap up, because I know you did your rock climbing. I know you've gone and met
rafting, indoor parachuting.
You've also met the king as well.
Yes.
Who's the king you met? Because he's that guy. See, I know royalty people, like third hand, but I know royalty.
I've been on the BBC on the Remembrance Parade.
There we go. And you're doing all this
scary picture.
I think you look dapper, but I think all these things that you do is incredible, and I can understand from what you've explained how difficult that may have done to achieve those things if you still had the leg and you was in the discomfort you was in, and probably on the meds, just trying to navigate that pain you had, and then people probably wouldn't invite you into the situation, or you wouldn't want to go because of your attitude. So I really am grateful for you as a human being, all the things you do. Before I wrap up, I want to ask you, is there anything that you would like to say, share, promote?
I would like to say that as much as you've thanked me and said what an inspiration I am, I would like to flip it back and say what an inspiration you are. Because you have helped me so much that doing this to promote you is my pleasure, my honour. I know that you've got your own set of problems that you deal with magnificently and won't, for one reason or another, talk about them, and I do not blame you. But you are such a motivational guy. You're like a big Mr. Motivator. You motivate people. You get the best out of people. You've got that inbuilt talent that you can recognise qualities that you can pull the string. No, sorry, I wouldn't say pull the string. You can recognise and you can get the best out of people with just some encouragement and carefully chosen words that come natural to you. And you are such a brilliant man at what you do, helping people and getting them there with no thought of wanting self-reward, no thought of, I want something out of this. You do it because you are a decent guy. And I want to thank you for all the help and support that you've given me in the time that I have known you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Don't make you cry on camera. Is there anything you'd like to promote at all that you are doing? Do you want to promote what's that group you said that helped you with when you first became an amputee?
BLESMA, British Limbless Ex-Servicemen's Association.
If you send me the details,
I'll put charity that support limbless veterans and their families the whole of life.
Well, what you can do, because I know you're ex-vet and there are many ex-vets that may listen to this, depending on how you share this. Give me all the links to the different ex-vet stuff that you've got.
Yeah.
We'll put it in the show notes. We'll put it at the bottom of the description, just so people have sight of it, because there may be people in those situations that don't know these exist, and at least you've actually experienced them, and they might think, oh, well, if he's done it and he's got his attitude, there might be other people that could support me in my situation.
Gladly.
And I think it's just important to just make those connections, and I appreciate those kind words. I'm not always good with taking compliments, but honestly, I think, and for those that don't know, the podcast was born because prior to me having my twins, I knew my kids weren't going to listen to me forever and a day. So I wanted to have something where people could talk about their situations, how it didn't pan out the way they wanted it to. But ultimately, their right now wasn't there forever. And by having different people come on, guy, girls, or however they identify, they could tell their story, and it would allow my children to not listen to my voice, but listen to real humans talk about real situations that are important to them and describe how they navigated them. And ultimately, not only will my kids learn from it, but other people that pick up on this will be able to hear it. And I went through depression back in 2013, 14, and I don't know if anything exists now around it, probably does, but at the time there was nothing that I knew of that was going to sort of help me get out of that funk, get out of that situation, because people do tell me, you should do this, you should do that, and I don't want to hear you telling me what to do. I don't want to. I don't feel anything. I'm just numb at this point. But if I had something where I'm hearing a story like Nick's, and I can pick out of it what I think is relevant to me, that would encourage me, because it's not telling me what to do. It's just letting me hear someone else's story and understand what could work for me and understand their mindset that would help them get out of a situation. So having the likes of you come on and share your story and just inspire people, I'm so grateful for it. And for those of you that are listening, I hope that you managed to take away something spectacular from this. I know, I don't know how else you're going to reach out to Nick if you want to, but feel free to send me an email if you want to. I'll put that in the show notes. And anything about Nick, I'll forward it on to him and watch his head get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then he won't be able to get out and about anymore because his head will just topple over. But he is a great guy, and I really do appreciate him jumping on. And for you guys that are listening, I hope you've been inspired. I hope you understand that your right now is not your forever. And there's no worries in feeling a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of concern about what is to come, because we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. But what we can do is prep ourselves, get our mind right, and go into the next day with the right attitude to know that I don't know what's coming, but I know I'm going to smash it. And life doesn't have to be linear. You don't have to say 2 steps back to go 1 step forward. Sometimes it's a dance. Sometimes you've got to shimmy to the left, shimmy to the right, do a pirouette, do whatever you got to do. But just know that life is not linear, despite us heading to a destination. Make it what you want, dance to your own theme music, and enjoy life while you can. Have a great one, take care, and just remember, not every L is a loss.
Every L podcast. Every L podcast. Every L